You're in a meeting. The clients are all there alongside your peers. They tell you about the project as you nod your head. Wait, what did she just say? Oh shoot, it's my turn to speak. Everybody is staring at you. Is everybody staring at me? Say something. That's cool. You respond. Everyone in the room gives you that funny look, as if they're waiting for you to say more. Something significant, but you draw a blank. Everyone awkwardly looks back at each other, and someone picks up the conversation to fill the uncomfortable dead space you've left in the room. You had one job and all you could say was, "That's cool." You sink into your chair, and the rest of the meeting happens without you. Why is it so hard to speak up in meetings? How do you avoid sounding foolish and dumb? And how can you feel more confident in conversations? Hello, I'm Matthew Encina. When I first started working with clients, I was a mess. I always felt like I was searching for the right words to say so I could sound smart and impress them. No one was impressed, and I sounded like someone who didn't really know what they were doing. But behind the scenes, I was very confident in my skills as a design professional. I knew my craft, I just had a hard time articulating my thoughts, especially in a real-time conversation with others. You may have been in similar situations, but there's no reason to feel bad. I don't think many of us were taught how to have good conversations. I've been working for over a decade, and it took me a while for me to feel comfortable in these situations. So in this video, I want to share a few simple things that have helped me find my way and have helped me gain confidence in conversations with clients and colleagues. Lesson 1. Slow down, get in sync. Your mouth doesn't work as fast as your racing brain. At least mine doesn't. For most of my life, I've always been one to trip up all over my words, especially when I'm excited or nervous. I'd say things out of sequence, speak so fast I'd run out of breath, or every other word would be a filler, like, kinda. The last one I'm still working on. I've addressed much of these problems by intentionally slowing down the cadence of my speech so I can collect my thoughts before the words leave my mouth. This helped me to speak clearly and with more confidence. You can practice this too. First, try speaking in small bursts without using filler words in between. Take your time, find the rhythm that syncs with how you process your thoughts. These spaces in your speech give you time to process what you really want to say and also gives you the room to breathe, which will help you relax in conversations. The second thing you can do to practice slowing down a conversation is to allow for silence in between responses. For most of us, silence is awkward. So we try to fill it with meaningless responses. Next time you're having a conversation, when somebody speaks, resist the urge to respond right away. Instead, count a full 3 seconds or more before you respond to somebody. You'll find that by giving those few extra seconds of silence actually might allow for the conversation to go deeper, because now there's room for everyone to expand their thoughts, articulate their ideas well, and complete their thinking before moving on. Slowing down helps you gain control of the pace of the conversation and gives you the space to go deep in your interactions with others. Lesson 2. You don't need to have all the answers. There's nothing wrong with saying, "I don't know." This was one of the most liberating things I've learned and have embraced over the past couple of years. When I first became a creative director, in those big client meetings, I always felt like all the eyes were on me. When it was my turn to speak, I felt this pressure to always respond, even though I didn't have a clear thought yet. Sometimes those responses would derail the conversations, and I would immediately regret what I had just said. When you're in this situation, you feel obligated to respond. But it turns out the only person who's putting on that pressure is yourself. What I realized is that any job that requires critical thinking takes a while for you to fully process what's being presented to you. So to overcome this, I stopped trying to respond to everything right away. Instead, I tried to be more honest and say, you know what? I'm still not quite sure yet. I'd like to collect my thoughts on this. That would immediately remove the pressure off of me because I gave myself permission to continue to think, and everyone else in the room was aware of it. I'd sit there in silence until I had a response to follow up with, and sometimes they would continue talking without me, and that would be totally fine. But once I had caught up, I would gently return to the conversation by saying, I think I've got all my thoughts together. I'd love to share them before we move on. In my experience, it's much better to be transparent about how you're processing something in real time, especially if you don't get it. You'll find that people are totally okay with it, and in fact, it helps create a safe space for everybody in the conversation to speak more candidly and slow down if there's any confusion. As you go forward in your career, the jobs you'll work on will get bigger and the challenges more complex. Big problems take time and space to understand and work through. No one expects you to solve anything on the spot because if the answers were that easy, the problem would have been solved and they probably wouldn't need your help. Lesson 3. Be genuinely curious, ask more questions. Once you become comfortable with yourself, the next part of the puzzle is how do you connect with other people? What do you say? How do you add something meaningful to a conversation? Growing up, I was always a bit of a wallflower. I was never good at striking up random chit-chat, and I always thought that other people were so good at talking, and here I was with nothing interesting to say. When I started working with clients, I would definitely be the most quiet person in the room, just because I didn't know how to contribute to the conversation. What changed everything for me was my approach. Instead of coming into conversations feeling like I had to say something, I would just lean in, focus on actively listening to what the other person was saying with genuine curiosity, and I asked a question rather than trying to answer. I found that by asking more questions, the conversation wouldn't have to be about me at all. The pressure to sound smart was gone, and now I felt like I had a meaningful role in the conversation. This helped my personal interactions, but became especially helpful when working with clients. Asking a series of why, how, and what questions helps you to invite the other person into the discussion and explore possibilities with you. Your curiosity will help them arrive at their own conclusions and find clarity, which I believe is the most valuable thing you can do for anyone you're helping. There's a very easy way for you to practice this. Next time you're having a conversation with somebody, when you feel that urge to answer, respond with a question instead. One thing that digs deeper into the last thing they just said. Forget about your agenda and what you want to add to the conversation. Instead, be generous and be curious about what they're saying. By doing this, you'll become a much better listener and feel more comfortable engaging with others. If you're looking for what questions to ask, I highly recommend you read the book The Coaching Habit by Michael Bungay-Stanier. He was recently a guest on our podcast and shared so many examples that you can apply to your everyday engagements. I also recommend the TED Talk by Celeste Headley on how to have a good conversation. In it, she shares her 10 rules which will drastically improve your daily interactions with others. I'll leave links to everything in the description below. If you want to be more confident in your conversations, remember these 3 things. Slow down, you don't need to have all the answers, and be genuinely curious. Give these a shot and let me know how it goes by leaving a comment below. I love reading your stories, so I'll choose a few of my favorite comments here to highlight on my Instagram stories. That's it for me. I'm Matthew Encina, and I'll see you in the future.